and I'm just outside on the terrace and took away my digital back from Phase One from the XF body, and I'm going to mount it on a technical, or some people call it a view camera, from ALPA Swiss. So this is the new digital back. You see it here, it's the IQ4. I used to work with the IQ3 before, which was the predecessor. I used the trichromatic version, which has better color replication, more natural colors, if you want to call it that way. And the IQ4 has not the trichromatic feature, but it has 150 megapixels now, which is a huge resolution, and I hope we see this later when we are going to play around with some of the images I'm going to shoot later today in Capture One. If you look at the sensor, it's a huge sensor. It's a medium format sensor, a full medium format sensor, so not a cropped one like you have it, for instance, in the Fuji GFX50S or in the Hasselblad X1D. So that's the full medium format like you have it in the old school medium format cameras. And as I said, with 150 megapixel resolution, we should get sharp details corner to corner. I'm going to mount this now on a technical camera. So this is a camera from ALPA. ALPA is made in Switzerland. It's a beautiful piece of handcrafted work. We have mounted here a Rodenstock lens, which is old school German optics. It's a 32 millimeter, calculated for the medium format. It has all kinds of manual controls here. Typically you would connect via cables to the digital back, but the connector, as ALPA Swiss is announcing on their website, has changed in terms of the number of pins, and my old one is no longer compatible with the new IQ4. So we have to play around. We cannot use the mechanical shutter. We have to work with the electronic shutter on the IQ4. And as I saw already when I tested and played a little bit, the preview on the IQ4 is also not yet working in the way it should work. So sometimes the image is freezing, you can no longer see changes in your image composition. So you have to fiddle around a little bit in manual style to get something out of that camera. So now let's assemble this. So the first thing we need is an adapter. So let's put this aside for a moment. The adapter is also from ALPA, and it makes the IQ4 connect nicely to that view camera. We put it on top here, and then we basically lock it up and the camera is assembled. That's the way it looks like, and later on, when it gets darker in Dubai, we are going to try to capture some nice images with that composition. Usually I use the IQ4 on my XF body. There the firmware is fine. Phase One announced they are still working on some fine-tuning and adjustments, but for me it's fully functional. I can nicely work with it and enjoy the terrific image quality we get out of such a big sensor. Before later today in Dubai we go to do some nightscape shooting. We want to make a few more remarks on that view camera here. So, as mentioned before, this is the IQ4, it's the new digital back from Phase One. All kinds of new features, nice menus, lots of functionality. Not yet fully mature in my opinion from a firmware perspective, especially in combination with a view camera like this, but fully functional and absolutely sufficient for my purposes here. We have the view camera body, which is from ALPA, made in Switzerland. It is a nice piece of technical work you have here with all kinds of adjustments. Most importantly, it has the shift functionality, so you can shift up and down by 15 notches, and in this way use it nicely for architectural shots. On the front of the camera we mounted a Rodenstock lens. The Rodenstock lens has all the manual operations you would expect on a lens like this. So this is the focus ring here. I will use it at the infinity point because that's what I typically use for architectural shots, of course, like probably most people on the planet. Here is the aperture setting because we want to have sharpness across the whole image. I will use this between 8 and 11, and in this way make sure that we hopefully get sharp and clean pictures corner to corner. So let's switch the camera on. The first thing you will see here is a progress bar. This is almost like a booting up or startup progress here. The second thing you see is the Capture One logo. because as far as I know, this is the only digital back from Phase One which has in-camera JPEG processing. For this purpose, you basically have 2 card slots here, which is also new. The IQ3 had 1 card slot, only a compact flash card slot. This has 2. One is an XQD slot and one is a normal SD card. You can have various options how you want to store your images when you are out there shooting. I have configured this in a way that I get a backup on my SD card of the full IIQ file, because I want to be on the safe side. But you can also configure this in a way that the IIQ file ends up at the XQD card, and the JPEG, which is in camera progressed and processed, ends up on the SD card. The basic camera menu is not completely different to what we had on the IQ3, but it is different to some extent. I think they nicely improved it. As I mentioned before, if I mount the digital back on my XF camera body, it's basically fully functional for me. I'm fine. Capture One is talking about a few adjustments. They want to make a few functionalities which are not yet there, but for me is absolutely sufficient. On the technical camera, I think there are still some problems, and ALPA mentioned them on their website. So there are a few things which need to be adapted so that this gets fully functional on a view camera like this. The main part missing is the cable connection between the lens and the IQ4 port here, because they changed the cable and the pins of the connector. My old cable is no longer working and the new one is not yet available, so I couldn't get it before I took off to Dubai. A problem also which I realized only on the technical camera here is the preview function. I don't know why this occurs, but I can try to demonstrate if it is working at all. So first of all, you have a switch here. This is basically shutter closed on the lens. This is lens is open. Let's remove this for a moment. Let's try to look at the preview function, which is that video symbol here. And you see it's basically black. So there is absolutely nothing you can do here to get that preview showing up on the screen. I had it on a few occasions. It occurred by chance. I don't know why it always is vanishing then again. Typically I observe that when it is there and you pinch to zoom to make fine-tunings of your focus point, it starts to freeze from a certain point in time on, and then it stays black kind of forever until you do some magic, which I could not replicate so far. But it's not a problem, because we will shoot at infinity focus. We have the aperture close to between 8 and 11, and therefore we get sharp images for sure when we go for our nightscape shooting later today in Dubai here. The menu has also changed. So for instance here you have basically your level meter, so you can adjust then on your tripod to get straight lines and get this nicely level metered. If you go back, you have the swipe up menu, which basically has the settings of the camera. Most importantly here, because we are missing that cable connecting the lens to the digital back, so we cannot use the mechanical shutter, is the electronic shutter, and that's switched on here now. So that's fine. You can also swipe down and then you get more functionality. I think in general the handling of the camera is quite nice, and I think Phase One invested a lot in many useful improvements. And I'm also sure a lot of people will enjoy that JPEG processing can be done right in the camera. As I said, I do not use it because I need to do this with all the time it takes on my Capture One on my MacBook. So let's look at the image quality in Post here. I'm in Capture 111. That's the usual tool which I need to process my raw files. You see here some data in the EXIF, 14,204 times 10,652 pixels. That's reflecting the 150 megapixel you have on the IQ4. You see the format. I actually stored it in the extended version, but it's not captured here in the EXIF data. And the shooting took place on the 29th of December, just before year end. On the timestamp, you have to add another 3 hours because this is German time and Dubai is 3 hours ahead. On the ISO value, you see this is 50 is the lowest you can take on the IQ4, and the shutter speed was 2 seconds. And since this is close before 6 p.m., you see the sky already coloring, going towards the evening. And I think is a nice atmosphere in that picture. What I want to do in the next minute is I want to sample into that picture and another one which was taken at the dark blue hour, and just show you with the magnification tool, or the loop zoom as it is called here, at a 200% level of magnification, how much detail is captured in those pictures.